Hello, Cheri.
Hi, it's so good to see you again, Reena.
Same here. Thank you so much for doing this for us, and it is going to help a lot to all those who are listening. So, thank you, Cheri, for doing it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's so nice to come right across the sea and welcome you from the United States into India. I'm just want to just say I'm humbled that you would have me into your world. So thank you for having me.
My first question is, I know that you are a specialist in dysgraphia. That's your main area of interest. So, the people who are listening, some of them may not know what is dysgraphia. Would you give us an idea about what that means actually?
Mm-hmm. Dysgraphia is a specific learning disability. It is one of the three specific learning disabilities that's categorized in the DSM-5. The DSM-5 is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual on Mental Health Disorders. It is a developmental delay in the neurological connections. So there really is no neurological condition that should remain long term. It's just slow at developing. However, sometimes there are some long term effects of the dysgraphia that do occur with students and people, and they do impact corporate level, business level communication skills. So, what it is it's really a delay. There are, I mentioned the three categories. Dyslexia is the one that's heard about the most. That is difficulty with reading. And when I try to associate it, really reading, well, let me back up. I'll just go into all three and explain them, and then I'll delineate a little bit more. Dysgraphia is writing, dyscalculia is math. So it's a difficulty with either reading, writing, or math. And how I like to delineate the dyslexia from the dysgraphia when I'm talking to people and introducing it is dyslexia is a sensory function. It's taking material in through your eyes, through possibly through your ears if you're doing an audible version with it or audiobook with it. But anything that you're taking and bringing back out and actually writing with your hand or typing in the computer is a written expression, and that's where the dysgraphia comes in. So I say reading is sensory, writing is motor. But I also have to warn you that there's also an auditory and an oral piece. So that's a little different learning disability. And usually there is a motor function that goes along with that. And that's the difficulty with oral expression, which is dyspraxia. That is definitely a neurological condition that is creating the motor planning problem that is creating the dyspraxia. With written expression issues, it may not be a neurological condition that is creating it. It can be just a neurological delay in the development. So when I really am trying to delineate what is dysgraphia, what is something else, if there is a neurological condition that's creating the motor problem, so motor planning, crossing midline might be another thing that you might hear. If there is legitimately a neurological condition that might be involved, that supersedes the handwriting problem and the writing problem. So that one always supersedes it. So when I'm trying to educate people on the differences with the different diagnoses, I always say that any neurological condition will supersede a delay in the handwriting. So if there is a neurological condition, yes, the writing is going to be delayed. Did that answer that question?
And when you say a neurological condition, what exactly does that mean? Because people may not know
So
what that means.
yeah, so a neurological condition would be anything else that would be categorized in that DSM-5. Autism could be a neurologically based condition that is going to cause a developmental delay. Attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or whatever category of ADD that you want to talk about, there is actually a neurological condition that's superseding anything that might be creating the handwriting problem. So when you're talking about ADHD and autism, and maybe even cerebral palsy, that might be one that people would hear of a lot, that the kids would have, that would have a neurological condition. That particular neurological condition is usually the primary condition, and then the secondary condition is a handwriting problem. So if they can't get number one under control, they're don't try to get number two under control till you can get number one under control.
Hmm. Hmm. And what made you interested in dysgraphia only? Why not dyslexia? Why not? I mean, I'm sure you're working on that, but why is it that what made you so interested?
Yeah, I really wanted to understand what it was because I couldn't find any information that told me. There was a lot of information that was talking about spelling problems, and I was really focusing on trying to help my kiddos that had spelling trouble, and I couldn't find any really good information. And I had this one parent that kept asking me, how can my child read at a 10th grade level? Mind you, she was in 3rd grade, and not be able to write. What is going on? And I noticed over time that a lot of kids that are considered twice exceptional are having those troubles. So, what I'm saying to you is, you have a kiddo that is gifted in most areas and still has a writing problem. I was like, what in the world is going on here? I don't understand this. So, as I started delving into it, it made my brain go pop-boom when I realized that not only were these kids like my child, they were like me. So I really, really over time went, oh wow, it's it's dysgraphia that's creating my problem. See, I gotta tell you, I was fired from several jobs as an occupational therapist because of my documentation skills.
Oh,
It, and then I go and write a book. How did that happen? It's because I was able to take it and put it into a different form of writing that my brain could tolerate. Because when you're writing documentation, it's specific, really short segments, and I was missing pieces of the puzzle. And it took me time to really take that moment and analyze what I was doing. So we're gifted in the ability to analyze task as occupational therapists. And I just took time and I just kept breaking it down and breaking it down and breaking it down and trying to analyze every piece that there was about writing, and not the actual physical putting a pen to paper piece, because that's been done. I was looking at what's going on from a learning standpoint. And I had a teacher who, she and I were kind of going through this whole thing at the same time. She had 2 boys that had sensory processing disorders, really bad visual perception, really bad dyslexia and dysgraphia. And she and I would just get on the phone like this on Zoom, and we would just go back and forth and just talk. And like the light bulb went on for both of us at one point, went, oh my gosh, there is a direct link between reading and sensory and writing and motor. But then we were like, well, where does the math fit in? And I was like, I got to do one with before the other. So right now, I'm actually dealing with how to make math adaptations that are really reflective of, is it the dysgraphia that's the problem, or is it the math that's the problem? And I'm really working on some of those problems with an adaptive math teacher, which has been really fun.
very nice. Wow. So Cheri, tell me one thing for people who are listening. So they understand the word dysgraphia, but does that mean that the child won't be able to hold a pencil, or won't he be able to trace? Would he not be able to write? or would it be the speed? What exactly would be affected if it is dysgraphia?
Uh, the long and short of it is, if their handwriting is not legible, that you can read it, or some teacher can read it, or another classmate can read it, or their speed is so slow that they can't keep up with their class. So there's two conditions that I really look at, and that's legibility and speed. My When I tell anybody about what a goal should be for anybody that has a handwriting problem, the two things that I like to focus on are legibility and speed. All the other components that we use to incorporate goals as occupational therapists are only components of those two pieces. So if you've got a kiddo who cannot remember if the B goes on the left or the right versus the D, and a lot of kids have trouble with switching that back and forth, or the P and the Q, they switch those back and forth. It's going to create an illegible moment because they have that memory hesitation. So one of the things that I have discovered in my research is memory is the problem. Their memory skills are not developed well enough that they can spontaneously come up with that, whatever it is that they're looking for.
And what is
So if say
are
that again.
what is this memory? Are we talking about a visual memory? Are we talking about an auditory memory? What exactly are we talking about?
Any combination thereof. So one of the things that I talk about in my book is emotional memory. So any hesitation on be able to declare. So declarative memory is the ability to declare that this imaginary round object that I'm holding in my hand is red, it has a leaf on it, is an apple. Making that connection from one side of the brain to the other. The declaring that it is red is that, or you can have a procedural memory, and that's more like time or following directions, like you have to do this step before this step before this step. If those two types of memory are creating that hesitation inside, you're going to have an emotional reaction to it, and that negative emotional memory is going to create uh, uh, um, I don't remember moment, and you're going to get the B having a line on both sides and the D, and it's going to look illegible because they can't really remember. And am I right putting, they're going to add different pieces to the letter that don't belong, or they're going to have gaps in the letter because they maybe wrote it too fast. And that's sometimes because they're just not sure and they want to get through it. So sometimes kids that are rushing through it all the time, they want to get it down as fast as they can because they know that the memory, the working memory, the procedural memory, the processing speed isn't going to be there to retain it till they get from the beginning to the end. And a lot of that's this description of ADHD. So
Yeah.
the executive functions do bear a lot of weight on the writing, but they're a separate issue. But what I'm finding in my research is that the inability to take the memory, put them together, and have a positive reaction is part of the problem. So a lot of kids create a negative emotional memory. So let me just take this example for a moment. This morning you got up, you did your morning routine, which could have included taking a shower, eating breakfast, brushing your teeth, and those typical routines that we do. If there is a piece of that that causes friction, what are you going to do? You're going to avoid it. So if you've got a kiddo who may not like brushing their teeth, because as soon as you touch one part of their mouth or their gum, it's creating pain, they're not going to do it. So if you got a kiddo who is writing and there is a motor delay because their forearm is weak and they can't extend, So they're getting pain in their arm. What are they going to do? They're going to avoid it. So that's going to create a negative memory.
Yeah.
I want to do it.
Yeah.
So it all comes back to negative emotional memory. Anytime kids are avoiding it. So we need to break through. And some of the things that you have talked to me about, the NLP that you do and EFT, am I getting those right? I believe that they are a really good foundation to help break through the negative emotional memory pieces. So, looking at the neurolinguistic programming and changing what they're saying to themselves is going to improve that ability to have positive emotional memory fit in there. And if you can create a better positive emotional memory, you're going to get a better legibility, a better speed, because they can retain it longer and be able to hold it so they don't forget it.
Yeah.
So my name is Cheri Dotterer. I'm an occupational therapist for the last 25 years. The last 5 years have really been delving into dysgraphia specifically. I've worked in pediatrics for the last 10. Prior to that, I worked eclectically in acute care, long-term care, home care, outpatient, adults and peds, a little bit of hands. But I really found my passion when I found out that I have a higher level dysgraphia. My daughter has spelling issues, she's a twice exceptional child. So she is gifted in most areas, but struggled with specifically spelling. She can type like there's no tomorrow. So that part wasn't there. It was just spelling, and spelling still trumps her up today. And it'll pause you. You get stuck, and then you lose what's going on around you because you're stuck on that piece. And then it creates friction in your system, and you just have to get over it, have to learn how to get through it. So I was fired from several jobs along the way because I just struggled with my conversational approach to writing documentation. It took me to find the gift of being able to write freely and flow it, write a book, to be able to get through my dysgraphia and be able to share that with other folks around the world. Specifically, now at this point in time, I have a small number of people, most of them are occupational therapists. I have one that is a dyslexia specialist who have been certified as dysgraphia specialists, and the course is based on my book, but it goes into much more detail. It takes several hours to complete it every week. You get dripped the course, which means you get like one little piece of it over 8 weeks. And when you're done, you have a good foundation of what dysgraphia is and how to implement activities in the classroom.